Nothing says official, like people shuffling papers.
You gotta shuffle some papers around.
Like the actual usage of the papers is not necessary.
Right. Just moving your cards around during a speech makes you seem like, oh. Like, and during the news too, like they'll never look at a piece of paper. They have teleprompters, but they'll go like this all the time just so they can like seem like, oh, I'm very knowledgeable actually.
Like the Daily Show, it pretty much builds itself off of that because like you had Jon Stewart just kind of like,
yep, and here's my card.
Like just doodling onto pieces of paper, doing nothing, but it has the appearance of news.
It does. It's much more news-like.
Hello, my name's Nick. I'm joined by the Tin Man, and we're here to talk about E3 2018.
Quite an E3 it was. This was probably, in my mind, the best one in probably the last 3 or 4 years. Certainly the best one this console generation. So there's a lot to be excited about.
Very much so. A lot of original titles, a lot of really good sequels coming out. A lot to look forward to. What would you say would be the most trending issues and concerns that have been going on?
You know, obviously everyone's all about that Battle Royale because Fortnite is just it's on breakfast cereals, it's in t-shirts, it's the new Minecraft basically, and probably will be for at least a little bit of the foreseeable future. Especially
when Minecraft, the Battle Royale edition, comes out.
Yeah.
Along with subsequent Solitaire and Minesweeper expansions.
Mm-hmm. It's all coming.
But I almost feel that the whole Battle Royale bandwagon is kind of limited to very specific companies.
That's true.
Or
try hard
indie companies that want to experiment.
Yeah.
Like on the PC gaming show, they were talking about a company that was doing 1,000 player multiplayer. Which
to what end? Is it a month-long game or something? It's just.
I remember when we began playing the match.
It's PlanetSide all over again.
Yeah. What was that? That multiplayer game it's Meg or Mag.
Mag. Yeah, exactly.
With the 256.
What's the point of that? Yeah. Like you'll never see another guy.
How are you supposed to racially or sexually insult people if there's so many people?
There's too many people. They'll find the friend somewhere. Or Ark Survival. There's like flying dinosaurs around and there's just millions of people building forts and killing each other rampantly. I don't know. I don't like that scale. It's like I once dreamt of the day when we'd have hundreds of people and huge teams, but now I want to take it back.
But then you realize that you actually want a more personalized, tailored experience.
That is why I prefer my Gears and my, Phantom Dust. And
your Last of Us.
Yeah. I want my little small team action, my little 4-man squads. And I mostly play squads in Fortnite, so...
Okay. Oh, wait, because then you get a little bit more enjoyment because, like, okay, if your friends start dying on you,
right.
Like, there's at least the chatter, as opposed to just be like,
that sucked. Yeah.
My team, if you did, like, the 50-on-50 mode, like, my other group failed me.
My team's trash, yeah.
But the thing that I would say, like, trended the most is the idea of creating an inn. To get people into games.
Absolutely. The welcome wagon with that new Gamers Pass on Xbox, like they can stream whole full-size console games now. Like this is Sega Channel all over. It's amazing. That technology, apparently it's like some Israeli like company and they can just like downgrade things. It's incredible.
But also like with like The Crew 2, their announcement of how they have a beta on June 21st, and the full game comes out June 28th.
Yeah.
Like, they said it as well in the same trailer, where, like, play free. Like, that is
they're
the
snake
point.
Oil salesmen, man. They want to rope you in.
But they're not trying to, like, the beta is essentially an idea to test a game.
Yeah.
But that's not a beta. That's a full game at that point.
Mostly done.
1 week away from launch... It's done.
Silly. It's silly. Yeah.
It's done. So that exists because... Did you play The Crew 1?
No, not really. I'm not really a big racing sim guy outside of the GTAs. I like my flight sims. I like my
The Crew has flighting and boating.
Maybe I did see that trailer and I thought it looked awesome. I was like, what game is this? This looks awesome. There's like biplanes and stuff. Anything with that I love. So I might have to check that one out.
But like and that's the thing. Now you have a way to get in without having to drop $60.
It's a good hustle.
It's a good hustle. Like you got that. You got For Honor has the free starter edition for 1 week on PC. By the time this video goes up, that week is probably going to be over, but that's okay.
No, that's a great idea. I think For Honor is like a game that appeals to a lot of people. Like, people want to do hack and slash. They want to have their, apparently there's a lot of historical type fiction games at this point, and I think the new characters look awesome. Like, seeing that that trailer was so good.
But at the same time, it also feels like somebody, like a kid is gone, like, we're gonna take people from this country, action figures from this country, and action figures from that country, and we're just gonna bash them up against each other, like,
can just randomly. Can fight your He-Mans? Yeah, I mean.
But there are other games doing it too, like Octopath Traveler has a demo where the save file carries on over.
That's awesome. I mean, I love stuff like that.
And I feel that this has something in relation to previous multiplayer experiences, or game experiences in general, are like, hey, spend $60, and then you get the game.
Yeah.
How is the game? You won't know until you spend the money. Now it's like, okay, here's a way for you to try.
Yeah. I don't know, it made me think of like Mass Effect, how you could carry over your save file. Like, any game that has like built-in continuity is brilliant. But so rarely do games survive despite franchises like, Call of Duty or whatever, where you can carry your prestige over or something. Like, can you imagine that? Like, people have been playing the same game for a decade now, basically, and
although you can almost argue that Mass Effect does the complete opposite of calling you in.
By wiping all that away.
Not just that, but also giving you DLC that affects the main story.
Yeah.
So it's like, you didn't play the DLC where you find out why Commander Shepard is in jail? Yeah. We're not going to tell you what happened.
Gotta buy that DLC, yeah.
Speaking of, what would you say was the worst in show for this E3?
There was a lot of worst in... I mean, there was some worst in shows. I feel like this is still light years better than years past. Like, a lot of years past, there were just cringe-inducing, clearly pandering to shareholders. And there was still a lot of that here. And like, stuff where it's very much for the business sense and not about the gamer. I'm more about, like, the artist. I want to hear from the developers, like, the visionaries. I'm more into, like, the behind-the-scenes, after-the-fact, small conference stuff. So, like, picking the brain of Hideo Kojima, or, that type of stuff is really compelling to me. But in terms of, like, cringe-inducing, just bad moments of shows, the EA conference was just lackluster. It was so sad. That was just they have all this money and all this talent, and they just didn't let any of it shine.
And I would even argue that, like, the EA conference is... Like, there were Ubisoft parts where, like, why are they still dancing?
Right.
Just like, Sony parts where they're like, okay, I'm sure you're very talented with this musical instrument that I've never seen before.
Like the brass band, yeah.
But what does this have to do with video games?
Creating spectacle. Yeah.
But, like, I felt like watching the EA conference that there was just so many moments where, like, the audience was just they're not getting into it.
No, it's like a lot of dead faces.
Literally dead faces in the audience.
I don't know, just generally, like, that whole... I realize it's part of the business, and it's so much about the big money now. It's just, and it's only getting worse, it's only getting bigger, and we're seeing that the clear division, almost the oil and water separating between, like, what's meant for gamers and game-friendly practices, and what's meant to clearly pander to just, like, let's make money, let's have microtransactions. And EA got so badly burned that like, there's legislation against them now. And this is like the State of the Union address for gaming. It's like, I love Star Wars, and I love video games, and I didn't buy Battlefield 2 because that burned so many gamers, and so many of my friends said the same thing. It's like, when you're making games that are just spiteful, even when you go back and correct things, and apparently now with the Solo DLC that came out, like,
They've added
They
some
added
more
it all
stuff.
back. They added all the pay stuff back, which just enrages me.
I actually-
Loot boxes, all this stuff, you know?
I actually did pick up Battlefront 2.
Yeah.
Not for the multiplayer. I just wanted to play a single-player
That's
Star
what
Wars
I
game.
want. Yeah.
And it had that.
Yeah. No, at least they had that. At least they had the Iden Versio,
Yeah.
and I heard it was, very good.
It was
I
fine.
want it for that. I'll buy it used for that. But, like...
But I suppose like the whole thing with EA is that like you have bigger amounts of money being spent.
Yeah.
Like there's still the hope that they're going to make some sort of profit on it. But at the same time, sometimes it doesn't really feel like they do a very good job leveraging their talent.
That's absolutely true. Like, they could have so many interesting teams doing better, smaller projects, and they waste these... They have huge, like, giant mega corporation, like Google-sized companies and complexes now, and they just... I don't understand their structure or organization. It's clearly meant to, like, generate as much wealth as possible and not make art at all.
That's the structure of the organization. You understand it perfectly.
Yeah.
It is...
everything is working exactly as planned. Yeah.
Exactly as planned.
Yeah.
Insert video game, get money from audience.
Pretty much.
Respawn's purchase being an excellent example of this.
But they hold that talent hostage, that it make them do rubbish.
Yeah,
like, create
really.
rubbish.
But here's the thing, though. Like, their Star Wars game might not be rubbish.
Yeah.
But it's like, we bought these guys because they made a weird, new, innovative multiplayer game that does cool things with mechs and unit fighting.
I had such hopes
but
for
it
them.
didn't
I had
sell,
such hopes for Titanfall, I really did.
But it didn't sell enough copies, so we're going to make you do Star
the
Wars.
safe bet. You can't lose.
Like how...
Built-in fan base.
With Visceral Games, they were like, Dead Space, that seemed pretty good, and you finished it.
Yeah.
Let's have you do Battlefield for some reason.
Not a good transition there.
What's a great transition is Battlefield 5 was also shown
Yes, that's true.
at E3.
And enraged a lot of people. I don't know, I like the Battlefield game. I like Battlefield 1. I love anything historical, period games, so I think it'll be cool. I think, the mechanics they trying to like make it more like Overwatch, a little more fun, a little more arcadey. But
for the multiplayer, you mean?
For the multiplayer.
Okay.
Yeah. But I like the campaign. I just like the campaigns in those games. But
that actually has my interest a little bit more because of Battlefield 1.
Yeah.
Instead of trying to tell like a long campaign, which is usually for World War stories.
That's what you get.
It's like you start at the beach.
Mm-hmm.
You end in Germany.
Pretty formulaic, yeah.
But instead, this is telling individual short stories.
That's cool.
And with Battlefield 1, you had the tale about the pilot. You had the tale about the the horse train.
Yes, I love that part.
So this enables different kinds of stories to be told in a war game.
I'm amazed there was that level of like artistry and storytelling in these kind of games. These like huge budget, like there's a soul. That is the small dab of soul in an otherwise huge multiplayer,
Yeah, the soul is over here. Over here, there's Battle Royale.
Right, and that's what 99% of players are playing. But there's that, like, even in Fortnite, there's a campaign mode that's really compelling, and they put all this effort into, and you have to pay to play that part.
Yeah. Although, the question I have for Battlefield's Battle Royale mode is, like, does it have anything to do with the squad-based multiplayer that already exists? Do you go in as individual squads and fight together? Like, are they going to put a spin on it that is unique to the game? Or is it just the same thing, but with Battlefield's engine?
Probably. They don't change the formula that often, like iterations year after year.
But I still want to have hope for DICE.
I want that too. Yeah, I agree.
Because DICE are at the very least a little bit more creative than most. They made Mirror's Edge.
Yeah.
So they at least have different ideas on what to do with mechanics.
And I think we even see some of those like parkour type mechanics in this game, which is interesting. It's like not Brink, but it's some parkour is going on. The kids still think parkour is cool, right? Parkour.
Hardcore parkour.
Hardcore parkour. Yeah.
But it's not that EA was without soul.
That's true.
They also had trailers for Unravel 2 and Sea of Solitude.
Yeah, there's a little bit of artistry in there still. Clearly they're fostering some small team stuff. Is it like a small project thing where they have like a week where they're just like, okay, everyone, let's do like here's a company picnic and everyone make. Like I know some companies have that where like they'll try and cultivate like small projects that they then develop.
Double Fine Studios.
Does that, which is amazing. Yeah. I love that idea, and so many cool things have come out of that. But yeah, forgive me. Why would I ever think EA would do such a thing?
No, I'm sure this leads back to how does EA choose projects?
Yeah.
They're like, well, if we had some indie games, people might think better of our company.
That's definitely a PR
and
move.
Then give us more money.
Let's make the cutest thing ever. Let's make a little ball of yarn that like plays with leaves on the breeze.
But this is what goes back to the structure of the company. Make games, get money. This is just a different way.
It is.
They don't understand the soul, but they'll take your money anyway for it.
But then again, you're talking to an artist and a writer, and you know, we're all about the soul.
I find with Unravel 2, I'm not as particularly interested, only because it's a co-op game, and I know I'm probably not going to have too many options in regards to doing the co-op. Whereas a game about the depression caused by loneliness, I feel like I can relate to it a little bit.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah. It's an interesting one. I do like psychological or meta-type games. I think those are... anything that can teach you something is... or be introspective and make you question yourself is...
game concepts, gameplay as a metaphor.
Exactly.
I'm sure we'll be...
I feel like Death Stranding is all about that, but we'll get there. We'll get there. That game looks amazing.
And then we got Command and Conquer Rivals.
Yeah. Tragic. Just tragic.
See, if it had a different name...
Right.
If it was just called Rivals, and it was a mobile game called Rivals, I'm sure it would be fine. Mm-hmm. But because it's dragging along the Command and Conquer name with it...
Yeah, it's kind of like Halo Wars. It's like just gonna be a really watered down RTS that doesn't do anything.
See, with Halo Wars, though...
at least that was like faithful to the property.
It's faithful to the property, and you still have Halo games being made at the same time.
Exactly, they're not...
it's kind of like when Syndicate came out, the first-person shooter.
Yes.
There hadn't been
not the Syndicate people knew and loved.
Is Syndicate also EA?
I think it is.
Yeah, the Syndicate
they got the rights, so yeah, that's what happened there.
Because they bought out Bullfrog and then closed them down.
Killed that one.
Yeah, so it's just another example of like there hadn't been a new Syndicate game for so long, and then the new one happens to be a first-person shooter.
Yeah. Which
I actually enjoyed because it's from the makers of The Darkness and Wolfenstein and Wolfenstein 2. But it's not what Syndicate fans want. Like Command and Conquer fans, they don't want a mobile game.
They made the Riddick game too, right? I think before they made The Darkness. That studio is very cool.
Yes. Yeah. But the mobile game phenomenon must continue, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, Fortnite, Android now, so...
And really, is Command and Conquer Rivals so terrible in comparison to Anthem?
I mean, that was another low blow in a show with very few low notes. I feel like Anthem is just... fell pretty far out of the tree and then bounced way down the hill. Like, that's...
Like, it could actually... It's probably going to be at least a decent game. Like,
it'll be a decent game.
Like, Mass Effect Andromeda, even for its lack of polish...
Yeah.
I still at least had a decent time playing, but it didn't live up to what BioWare...
The precedent set by the once great BioWare.
Correct.
Yeah.
And looking at the trailer that they were showing for Anthem, you've got the typical team dialogue, the fake dialogue shown in the background. You've got just generic gameplay that you could kind of copy and paste from other games. So it doesn't really show, again, very well for how EA leverages their companies. Like, they're spending a lot more money, but how much are they getting out of it?
Yeah, and I think they're almost content to just be like, settle for that bare minimum. But at what point is there lesser returns where like people just aren't buying BioWare games anymore because they've poisoned the well so hard at that point? Like when all your good talent has left and you're getting by on a name, it's I don't know, too many companies do that nowadays. You're getting by on just the name and nostalgia.
Whereas at the same time, on the other side of the fence, you have Obsidian.
That's true. Yeah.
The makers of games like Knights of the Old Republic Part 2.
Yeah.
In which case, they've found their own niche making large RPGs that aren't necessarily as technically as impressive as Anthem, but they have better gameplay, better writing, and that is what BioWare was known for.
Yeah. I guess we'll see. I'm not gonna. This is BioWare's last chance, though. Like
I'm probably still gonna buy it.
I'll still play it for sure because I do like the idea of the different mech suits. It's very cool, like old school Mech Assault. I love, but yeah, I don't know. I feel like if BioWare doesn't get this right, this will be the one that might break the fandom's back.
Which is unfortunate because when DICE makes Dragon Age the first-person shooter. Featuring Battle Royale because BioWare was closed.
Exactly.
Everything just spirals downhill from there.
When are we gonna get another Dragon Age? That's what people want. They don't want Anthem. Anthem is Destiny, and Destiny's already Destiny, and it's not even a good Destiny.
Destiny is Destiny.
Yeah.
But that's enough. Probably enough talking about
mudslinging
at Electronic Arts. Let's try to be positive.
There's so much positive, actually.
Like
now we've got all that crap out of the way. Now we can talk about all the good stuff because there's so much of it.
Such as, what would you say would be the best company that was displayed at these conferences?
Best company? I mean, there were some good shows here, and I don't know. It's something about like when a company can show to you their philosophy and their personality that distinguish themselves either through like they're not necessarily the library of games, but through like their staff that you actually find likable. Like, you know, Nintendo's got their Reggies, you know, Konami had their Hideo Kojimas. Like, there's always like that defining personality, and like to see the leadership of some of these, like EA is just, there's just no personality there, but whereas Ubisoft has very vibrant, maybe the French people just seem more artsy-fartsy to me, and I enjoy just seeing them talk and about their games and how passionate they are about their music, and their stage show was so good, and I was just really impressed with Ubisoft this year. Their catalog is so good and so vast this year.
I guess,
and their stage show and presence was amazing.
Sticking with your the argument that you're making, though, is it's not really about the catalog; it's about the people presenting the catalog too. Whereas, like,
anyone can hire an actor, but when like your figureheads and your leadership, like think about Peter Molyneux for Lionhead, like there's just some people that are synonymous with their company. And when those people are people that are likable to their fan bases, like that will carry forever.
Whereas like companies like Sony and Microsoft are basically just a list of trailers. But like now we're going, here's the writer from this team.
Right. That matters more to me. That's what I want out of an E3. I don't need a bunch of, you know, hot reels and a bunch of like, you know, figureheads and models and actors and people pretending to play and be cool. I want to see the actual creative team, the people that I like, and I think the smaller companies can do that. Like we'll get to Cyberpunk 2077 and we'll get to, you know, Death Stranding, but like those are just the two best examples where the actual philosopher and the auteur game makers, you know, who have built a foundation and built a reputation, like they go on stage and people, they're beloved. I don't know. What was your best company?
I was
standout.
Like I listed Microsoft only because I didn't actually care for the stage shows in Ubisoft. Like I didn't really care for the dancing and the motorcycle antics.
I mean, it's all pomp and circumstance if the games aren't good. Like, the games are what has always been for me. It's not about the one console. I'm not a fanboy. I have everything. You have everything. You're not loyal to one or the other. It's like, it's all about the goodness of the games.
Correct.
And I think that, you know, if that's on display, then that's what I'm there for. And I think that's why still does feel like Christmas to me. Like, it really does. There's not a lot of situations where I still feel that childhood magic and nostalgia, and E3 has always kind of done that.
Also, what might have boosted Microsoft's status in my eyes is that I watched it directly after Electronic Arts. That was the second
it's a total heel
conference I
turn.
watched.
Yeah, I think I did the same thing, and I was like, my God, Microsoft really got their act together after the past couple of years of not having much to show for it.
But we did see a little bit of Halo Infinite. Not much.
That's enough for most Halo fans, and I was like a diehard Halo fan for a decade there. Halo 2 is my most played game ever, and the finest of that shooter. Apparently this is a return to that form, like Halo 2, Halo 3, after like missteps with Halo 4 and 5. So
Halo 4 was kind of okay. Halo 5, I think, kind of cleared that up.
Yeah,
and they even brought in the cast of ODST,
right,
which
and
was
I love
unexpected.
Like, I love ODST too, but yeah, just like that good storytelling that like Bungie's known for.
But this kind of also goes towards like leveraging talent.
343 Studios.
Like,
yeah.
Okay, so you have this studio, can they work with this? As opposed to just kind of like trying to push one developer who might not even be very interested in that type of game, i.e. Dead Space to Battlefield Hardline.
Yeah.
Like, these genres don't quite match up.
It's a big departure from form, yeah.
But there wasn't really too much to see this year. Maybe they're going to have more later on. They did have sequel to Ori and the Blind Forest was the first one. Ori and the Will of the Wisps.
Yeah.
Still looks fantastic.
Stylish, cool, throwback, side-scroller.
We also have From Software's newest game, Sekiro Shadows Die Twice. Which I did not expect it to be an Activision game. But I guess they got to get money from somebody.
Someone. That looked insanely cool. Just like all the weapons, he's like got a fan that turns into like a bulletproof umbrella and just like kunai whip chains. It looks like Tenchu Stealth Assassins, like old school ninja style, just like antics, which is awesome.
It gives me the more impression of like it's like Bloodborne light. If for people who thought Bloodborne was really hard,
yeah, exactly.
Like here
not
is
hardcore gamers, not Ninja Gaiden types, but
here's something that can be playable by human beings.
Yeah. Which is good. You want your audience to get through most of the game, you know, unlike Cuphead where it's like you're just being brutalized and people get to see half the game because it's too hard.
And then there's the whole discussion about that kind of was brought up about by that entire thing in which like if you can skip bosses.
Right.
But then at the same point, like the bosses are the point.
Exactly. You want to see that artistry.
But not too much. There's a few mystical samurai games coming out. There was
a heavy Asian, like Eastern leaning in it from a bunch of Western studios. Like there wasn't a big like Eastern studio presence at this E3 outside of like Squeenix, but like lots of appealing to that market.
Yep.
Which is really a sign of the times. We're seeing that in films. We're seeing that in, you know, TV shows where they'll throw in a few. I think just so they can get people, you know, even in Deadpool 2, they had the one character just so they could sell that movie and put that character on the poster in Asian markets. I think we're seeing that here. That's finally we're getting to that point.
Well, but then I guess the reasons why From Software is making this game that takes place in an Asian market versus the reason why Team Ninja is making Nioh 2 versus the reason why infamous developer Sucker Punch is making Ghost of Tsushima.
Yeah.
Like, I would imagine their own goals are different, but it could also be because it's like when Deep Impact and Armageddon came out at the same time.
It's just you're riding that wave of this is where the cool kids are going, and it's a zeitgeist. The great idea will be everywhere at the same. The wheel will be invented in 5 places at the same time. You know,
like people are like, there are not many games taking place in Eastern areas. Let's make a game there.
You got a lot of Knights games, a lot of Western, you know,
a lot of
European,
sword and shield.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of that. You got a lot of sci-fi military shooters going down in Washington D.C. and dystopias, and let's make some samurai games, because there haven't really been any in a while. Like, good 5 years, I couldn't think of one. So it's cool. I'm excited. I'm really excited for Ghost of Tsushima. That looks so cool.
But we'll talk about that when we get to the
We'll get there.
Sony section.
Yeah.
In the meantime, jump a little bit north and talk about Metro Exodus in Russia.
Yeah, those Russian studios are putting out some good stuff. I mean, the Eastern Bloc is rising. Like, between those guys and CD Projekt Red, like, I'm really impressed. Like, those games look excellent.
Although I would say I would cater more towards CG Projekt Red.
Yeah.
Because I feel their writing is better.
Oh yeah, Witcher's amazing.
Whereas
That's good storytelling. Metro is more about like the immersion.
Correct.
With like worrying about your breathing apparatus and your canisters and your batteries. Like, I like that kind of stuff in a post-apocalyptic game. It feels like the immersion of Fallout 3 when I first played it. Like, being that into a game because it's a first-person shooter. But that's also what some people are not happy about, that being the first-person perspective in Cyberpunk 2077. Like, yes, it's good for immersion, but people in their RPGs, don't you want the third-person perspective? Because then you can see all your cool armor that you're upgrading and the character development that you're making.
Perhaps, but also, like, you could argue that after it took them 3 games to get The Witcher combat to actually be really good.
That's true. Well, the same thing for Assassin's Creed. Like, the combat was garbage in the first like 3 or 4 games, and they finally, by the end of like, you know, Brotherhood and Revelations, they had good combat.
But like, let's say they did another third-person game. Mm-hmm. It might be a little bit. They might find it easy to just kind of follow up on what they did with. So this first-person game provides different challenges for the designers and different answers.
Yeah, they were talking about that in like the E3 Coliseum, just like interviewing game designer and the project lead, and you know, it was really interesting to hear them talk about like the ways that they were having to, like, because you drive a car in the game because they have to have some mode of transportation, but like when you get in the car, the whole perspective becomes widescreen, like the entire windshield. It's not like one person and you can look left or right. So it's a really interesting like how they play with those perspectives, and I think that's, you know, a novel way of approaching like transportation in the game, that, you know, it's not a horse this time and you're driving around cool flying cars, and that's awesome.
That was a great discussion
Tron
about
type light cycles.
I still have to see Tron Legacy.
Cool Cora, yeah.
I doubt you'll get cool Tron light cycles in Forza Horizon 4.
Good.
But you're probably going to get
Segue.
some other awesome cars to drive throughout the London area, I believe, is where it takes place.
Yeah, I was surprised that they chose London, but I think there are a few games. We're starting to see a lot of Washington, D.C. games. We're starting to see a lot of San Francisco, and we're starting to see a lot of, like, London. I noticed a few games are being set there and realistic, which is cool.
With Forza Horizon, I believe the previous ones, there was Australia, there was Italy before that.
Yeah.
So, like, where do you have it go where you can have, like, where you can realistically have multiple weather systems?
Yeah.
Like, you can't really have winter in the middle of Africa.
I guess not. Kilimanjaro. The Rift Valley.
Eastern Asia. Yeah. Sounds like a great place to set your Forza Horizon.
Why don't you just drive on the top of the Great Wall of China, cruising cruising the world.
Cruising world style.
Exactly. They need to bring that one back. That was great.
But that game, since now it is Microsoft Studio first party title, is going straight to Game Pass because they were not recently purchased by Microsoft Studios.
Among a few others, very good studios. It was a good move because they need to bolster their... That's one thing Sony has had on them for this whole generation. Good first-party studios.
Correct.
We got God of War, we got Last of Us, like... Sony had that, and now Microsoft's like, we're going to strike back this time. We've been resting on our laurels, and now we got some new contenders in the game.
They had Sea of Thieves.
Come on, Rare. Come on, get it together. Go back to making avatars.
But
I love pirates.
I don't know what they mentioned they have a new company called The Initiative. I don't know if that was an existing one or something that's just entirely new. They got the company that made the State of Decay games.
I like that one.
Undead Labs.
Yeah.
Compulsion Games, Compulsion Studios.
Yes.
Who has We Happy Few coming out soon.
Which looks amazing. It's like, comes out August? Middle of August, I believe?
I think so.
Yeah, August 14th. That looks awesome.
Have a little bit of joy in your life.
Yeah, it's... What is it? Basically like Clockwork Orange meets like Fahrenheit 451 meets like
any type
BioShock?
Of like
it looks awesome.
Any type of story that has some sort of authority figure.
Authority, yeah, exactly. Draconian system.
No, well, what's it called? Not Fahrenheit. The Ray Bradbury novel.
Yes. I was thinking of Aldous Huxley's Brave New World.
Wow, that's amazing. I was also thinking of Aldous Huxley's A Brave New World. I just forgot about Aldous Huxley.
Yeah.
And the title of A Brave New World.
Such a good book. One of my all-time faves.
As it has them feeding upon ice
Soma.
cream that
Porgies.
melds with their mind. So that they behave.
Yeah, just behave. Just toe the line. You beta, you gamma.
Oh, I almost forgot. They also got Ninja Theory.
Yes. Awesome.
Which, their last game, Hellblade Senua's Sacrifice,
novel, pretty cool.
Was intense.
Yeah.
It had its low moments that I didn't really care for, like a big section of the game where you're just wandering. But the actual combat in the game and the concept of the game was very well done.
Yeah.
And then the really big, important news, PUBG is going to have a winter map.
That's what passes for big news in PUBG.
Big news.
Do you play much PUBG? I played it a couple times, and I always found Fortnite more compelling, more creative.
I tried Fortnite.
Yeah.
And I found the idea of the Battle Royale mode interesting. But I find there's a lot of it that's based on luck.
Oh, for sure.
That first half of each match
you never know
feels like it's too much based on luck.
It's roll of dice, yeah. I mean, I love Fortnite. That's one game that I play religiously. But I didn't really get into PUBG. It's a little too realistic for me. A little too Twitch intensive. And kids, I don't have the time to put in that these kids do these days.
You don't have enough time to stream?
I don't have time to stream either. I guess I could be one of those personalities and just quit my day job, but no, I'm not there yet. Maybe next year. Yeah.
In the meantime, at the very least, Devil May Cry is returning to the main stage.
That looked awesome, though. And, like, I love Devil May Cry 1, 2, and 3 are so good.
I'm a terrible Devil May Cry fan in that I've only played 1 and DMC.
Okay.
Clearly, neither of us have played 4.
Didn't
play 4.
Supposed
to be the big one.
Yeah.
And that's actually the one that they're bringing the creator back to make DMC 5.
Exactly, because it's that character. Yeah, Nero is the star this time. And Dante's in there, and 10 years have passed or something like that, but...
although approaching this, I would say, like, okay, I have no idea where the story is, but the game looks awesome.
The game looks like fun, yeah. We were remiss to neglect Gears of War, new Gears of War.
So Gears of War 5 was announced, along with Gears of War Tactics.
Which looks awesome. Anything strategic, sign me up. And Gears I've always enjoyed. It's just like the best like buddy couch co-op, like squad shooter, cover shooter. It's just awesome. It's cool mythology. It seems like they're going into more dramatic storytelling this time. A couple new characters. I didn't care for the last one, but I'm intrigued by this one.
I thought Gears of War 4 was okay, but there was a clear separation between here are the robot enemies that you're fighting, here are the not robot enemies that you're fighting.
And I think that people just want the Lambent. They want the same continuation, the cool world building and villains that they've built up for 5 games now.
Fighting robots is only so exciting.
Yeah.
But this new trailer for Gears of War 5...
That's where Halo went wrong, too, with the Prometheans, I feel like.
Yeah, the robots.
Don't make robot enemies. That's
or don't make all the enemies just one type and then another type.
Yep.
So you're just switching between types of bad guys.
Yeah. I mean, Destiny seems to have gotten that right now, at least, so...
And they've started to, especially since Destiny 1... they've started mixing and matching and having big fights between the groups of bad guys.
Which is cool.
As opposed to, okay, now you're going to the moon, you're fighting these bad guys.
Yeah.
But they're not on Mars. That's a different group. You can't fight both of these bad guys at the same time.
Never the two shall mix. Yeah. Where are we at now?
Let's see.
There's Microsoft had a good show. They had a lot of very strong showing, and all the big, like, it's only so often, once in a console generation, that we get a Halo, a Gears, like all the big franchises in their stable together at the same time, and that's what we got this year. This was that year.
Let's see. We got an expansion for Cuphead.
Awesome.
Featuring
Love
Miss
Cuphead.
Chalice.
Yeah.
I still haven't finished.
So is it going to
Cuphead.
be 3-player co-op now? Or is it just going to be like a different skill set for Miss Chalice? That's what I wonder, because that would be cool.
I don't know. I don't think... Did the two characters have different skill sets, or...
I think just you could, co-op,
shoot faster.
I just wonder if she won't be, the third player, so you can get your third buddy in the game. Or
I'd be worried that like 3 people playing Cuphead would be really chaotic.
Yeah, exactly.
Like you wouldn't be able to see what's going on anymore. Although it's impressive how quickly they're making this expansion. This island.
So too. Yeah.
So they're making a game, a part of the game that's a whole new third, so to speak.
I almost feel like they held this back. They had this done, and they're like, we got to hold something back for E3. So they just, it's probably already on the disc or whatever. But that's how they roll. But I'm excited.
Yeah, like they're holding Cuphead back. They're just fine tuning it forever
for 10 years, yeah, or at least 5. But that's what it takes for games these days. Like, you wait 5 years, they'll announce something, and then you won't hear about it. And we've come to accept that. That's just how it is. You get one game per console generation, and you get one GTA, and you get one Halo, maybe 2 Halos, unless you're EA, or Ubisoft, and just crank that out there yearly.
Yeah,
and
although
usually it's diminishing returns. And
yes, although looking at Assassin's Creed, I noticed that this developer has been in work on it for a while.
They cook their stuff up. They have different development teams. That's the other perk of being a huge development house, is you can have your teams. And
that's the only way that will succeed.
Yep.
Like, there was a time when Call of Duty games were coming out every year.
Same team every year.
Same team every year, and it
Just
suffered.
new maps, yeah.
Assassin's Creed games every year, and they suffered for it. But there were plenty more world premieres.
So many world premieres.
World premiere of Dying Light 2.
It looks beautiful.
Did you play Dying Light 1?
I did not. It looked a little budget. I feel like Deep Silver, while I liked some of their earlier work.
Well, Deep Silver is just the publisher. I want to say its developer is Techland.
Techland, that's right. Okay, so I played Dead Island. I liked it. I liked Dead Island 2. What was the one that came after?
Dead Island, it wasn't Dead Island 2, it was expansion pack.
Right.
Dead Island 2 they announced, but they never released.
Made it because it became...
It was kind of like bought out by somebody else.
Yeah. I remember it being a big business deal, but...
But Dying Light 1 I thought was okay.
Mm-hmm.
The gameplay was cool. The story was awful.
Story's essential to us. Like, that's one thing that, like, as writers, we have to have that. Like, that's one of the things that separates the good and bad. I look at my top 10 of all time, and it's because of the story. Even if the gameplay, the mechanics, graphics aren't to par, like, Alan Wake has an amazing story.
Even if every time Alan Wake opens his mouth, and it's got this like weird jaw disjointing effect, and it's just like he makes every time he's like, it's fine.
Sam Lake, I'm fine with it.
But with Dying Light 2, now we've got Chris Avellone, designer of games such as Fallout 2, Fallout New Vegas.
Really good pedigree, good storytelling. Like, Vegas is just a mile deep. That world is so immersive.
And both of those games have those strong focuses on how does one choice affect other choices. And that's something that he seems to be able to bring to the table with Dying Light 2. Is have these little choices and how they affect the world around you.
I really hope this game succeeds. Just for that alone. It makes me want to play it. But the demo was really good, and the demonstration of how the different factions interact, and the world building, and how the geography changes, that looked so interesting.
It kind of reminded me of a David Cage game when it appeared that a David Cage game could be amazing.
Right. Have you played Detroit?
I haven't played that one yet.
You got it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, David Cage's are always compelling and always something worth picking up, I feel like. Because he's an interesting guy and interesting mechanics and interesting storytelling. But, yeah, I feel like there's always something jarring, something just not quite
something
there.
disjointed.
Yeah, something just like clearly the gamification of life when it's like a narrative too, you know. It's kind of like Westworld. It's like something's just not quite right.
The uncanny valley is too deep.
Uncanny valley of storytelling and the characters. I think we're getting to the point we're getting over that, though. If anything, we've seen the technology. That's what blows my mind.
So the technology is going to present people as realistic, but at the same time, it's still up to the creators to answer that question of like to make them to give the illusion that they are like real people.
Yeah. I want to talk about Death Stranding again because this is exactly what we're talking about, like filmmaking quality in a game.
But you said you said you saw the interviews with Cyberpunk 2077.
Yeah, so I highly recommend these interviews. They're called E3 Coliseum, and they are hour-long discussions just between like two creators, like the lead artist and the lead writer and the lead game designer, and they're really in depth about their process, which is more interesting to me than stats about numbers or DLCs or loot boxes. Like I don't care about all the gamey stuff. I want to know like the
You don't want to know about.
I want to know how
when you
it's
press
made.
square and squared is the action button.
Right.
You want to know why square is the action button.
I don't care about the air stall, length time window. I care about like what are these guys thinking? What are their design philosophies? Well, what makes the game, the recipe, and just listening to these guys talk about the pen and paper RPG systems and how those apply to the game, and just that trailer was so good. There's not often that like a trailer comes on that sells the game, which is exactly what happened with Dead Island. Like that trailer was so phenomenal. If you remember the reverse time, slow motion, Zombie Girl, that trailer sold that world to you. That was Blade Runner. That was Snow Crash. Like those are my favorite books and my favorite movies. And it's a noir type game, and it explains all the factions and how criminal the elements you're gonna be dealing with. And it really brought me back to like the KOTOR trailer and Fallout 3, just how much I wanted to be in that world and just lose myself to it like unabashedly. And if a trailer can get you to do that, like we didn't see any gameplay. Apparently behind closed doors there was like a 50-minute demo, which I suspect will be leaked in the next couple of days probably, and I can't wait to see it. But just from everything they were describing about that demo, I can't wait. Like, this game is going to blow people's minds.
Well, it's CD Projekt Red. I mean, like, after The Witcher, The Witcher 2, and The Witcher 3, they've established themselves.
They are competent storytellers. They're not afraid to touch on violence, sexuality, and I think we'll see a lot of that in this game. It looked really graphic, and both the CG trailer and the like gameplay type trailer both kind of hinted at this. I can't wait. And I don't often say that about games. Usually I have like 1 or 2 a year, and this is one of those I'll wait 3 or 4 years.
And then part of me is excited about it too, but then also part of me is like, it's probably going to be like 100 hours long, and I'm not going to have time to actually play it.
I don't think it's going to be that expansive, because I don't feel like the Witchers were. I'm hoping they stick to a formula where it's kind of contained to some degree, in the way that like BioWare game, like Mass Effect was, where it's it's maybe a 30-40 hour game, and I'd be totally content with that. I don't need a Fallout 3 where it's several hundred hours.
And Elder Scrolls where it's
I don't want that. I don't want Skyrim. I can't. I simply can't anymore. I have responsibilities. But it sounded like they were trying to keep things contained to some degree, because there's not limitless options, but it also had a lot of the same stuff as like Deus Ex, which is, I love that series, and I would love a new Deus Ex games that wasn't made by Square Enix. But
or are things just made by the specific company that's working on them right now? The people who did Human Revolution and
exactly
Mankind Divided, which
were awesome in their own right, but they're not still my Deus Ex 1, which is like one of my all-time favorite games.
It's going to be tricky for most developers. Like, I want to say CD Projekt Red approaches their material in a different fashion.
Oh, totally.
In that they're like, we can make a game, we can just keep making it bigger, and that's fine. Whereas, like, especially with Mankind Divided and Human Revolution,
much more
the goal,
linear.
or even the original, the goal is to kind of like you have these subsequent areas.
That's true.
These are your
It's a much
set
smaller
pieces.
world. Yeah.
But if you wanted to kind of go back to the original, then it's like,
Or even Invisible War.
how do you? No, I don't. Invisible War. I played it, and it suffers from gameplay, not from story development.
That's true. Yeah.
The options it gives you for story development, are much more impressive, which would be time. There will be a lot of time to create all that these days. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Looks good. Can't wait.
Yeah, Cyberpunk 2077.
And also, I feel like it's the time. Like, that's another trend I would note. If there's like a big Eastern influence, I would also say that Cyberpunk is another next wave rising between what was that flick that just came out? Steven Spielberg?
Oh, yeah.
Ready Player One. So Ready Player One kind of turned people on to the idea of like, okay, here's like what people thought in the 80s, what they thought the future would be like. And it's the same premise for Cyberpunk, where this is what the future of 2077 looked like in 1980. And then it's not like a modernized take on how things have developed.
And then Guillermo del Toro has his Battle Angel movie coming out.
Yeah, that's right. That looks awesome. Like, I've read quite a few of the manga, and yeah, that's very cool. And I love Snow Crash. That's one of my favorite all-time books, too, and that's very much like a product of its time, a take on what the future would be like. But suffice to say, I think Cyberpunk is coming back. Like, Blade Runner paved the way.
Yeah.
And we're going to see a whole lot more, so...
I'm okay with that.
They're at the right place at the right time. They're going to be on the crest of that before everyone else feels need to tag along.
And I suppose Cyberpunk is a little bit more interesting than your typical post-apocalypse genre that Rage 2 kind of fills in.
Yeah, but I'd be content with more. I want Borderlands 3 still, and we didn't get that this E3.
I still haven't actually finished Borderlands 2.
Oh my god.
That's
one of my favorite games ever.
There's just too many guns.
That is one of my favorite games ever. Like, that's a game that you get a little 4-man click, and
maybe that's what held me back, because I never got that 4-man click.
Oh, you gotta have, like, I had my 4 regular people, and we played religiously for several months.
I played by myself, so...
I could never play those games alone. You need people. That's one thing that, you know, as we get older, I guess it's worth mentioning. Like, a lot of my friends who I used to game with have gotten married, had kids,
other responsibilities.
Like, most of us have, 50-hour-week jobs, hobbies, and I think, like, it's really hard to get the gang together. So I think that's a lot of, like, my when I'm talking about games I'm anticipating some dream state in which I can put the band back together and have a 4-man cowboy posse for Red Dead Redemption to, like, talk an old-timey, like, let's put them on blast at the saloon. Exactly. Like, I want to have a sarsaparilla. I want to roleplay that thing so bad. And I'm imagining that, and I know it'll happen at least a week or two. But I don't think I'm going to have the longevity of, when I was playing Halo, and like that kind of immersion where you are meeting up nightly to make this happen. And maybe that's a dream of childhood, and I hope kids are still getting to do that. I know a lot of my younger cousins are, but like maybe that time is bygone.